Kansas City seems to be moving forward with plans for a new KCI. A single terminal design costing $1.2 billion was greenlighted this week by the City Transportation Committee. Council members were shown animated video of what it would all look like when the project will be complete. It would be built on the site of Terminal A, which would be shuttered by year's end. While many city officials are supportive, including the mayor, others are questioning how much public support the project has. And the aviation department has been under criticism this week for hiring an outside PR firm at a cost of $117,000 to, quote, minimize customer confusion and misinformation about the project, according to department documents. But what's the biggest confusion and misinformation that they're trying to clear up about the $1.2 billion plan, Lynn?
Well, I think aviation officials feel that a new airport terminal can be just as convenient as the current airport configuration, and I think the public doesn't trust that. There seems to be a great deal of affection that the public has for our 40-year-old airport and the ease with which you can drive up to the door, you can walk in, there are many, many gates, you don't have to go through this snaking security line, and people really love that. The problem that the aviation officials say is that the airport is 40 years old, the security really isn't efficient, there are old mechanical systems and the baggage system is outdated, and I think they feel like Kansas City is losing business and flights to other cities that have modernized their airports, and that we're just not keeping up, and this is not an airport for a world-class city. A lot of residents could care less whether we're a world-class city, but that's the debate.
But losing business, and we'll continue to lose business, according to city officials and the aviation department, Scott, if we don't make this change.
Well, but I think the aviation department, and maybe this is why they hired this PR firm, has done a horrible job convincing the citizens of Kansas City, Missouri, and for that matter, the citizens of the Metro, which also use the airport frequently, that you need to fix something that's not broke. And I think the impression is, at least it is for me and for others, is that the city's spending $117,000 to convince me that I like something that I already don't like. And the comparison that Councilman Russ Johnson made this week that, well, there was initial opposition to getting rid of Kemper and building the Sprint Center, an apples and oranges debate. I don't recall, now there was some opposition to getting rid of Kemper and building the Sprint Center, but it was hardly like the opposition that I've seen and heard on the radio and from others to turning a three-terminal, very convenient airport into something, and as Lynn mentioned, something that the public doesn't trust will be nearly as convenient. And the aviation department has a lot of work ahead of it if it's going to get this one-terminal airport.
Dave.
I think the important takeaway from this contract and some of the other discussion this week, Nick, is I do believe aviation officials now believe this almost certainly will go to a vote of the people in some way or another. I think there was some thought early on that they might be able to put together a financing package that would not require a vote, but I think it's increasingly clear that they'll have to ask for voters' permission to issue the bonds. Taxpayers won't be paying for those bonds. It'll be users and others, but it will have to go to a vote of the people. And if that's the case, then what Scott says and Lynn has said about the public relations of the airport becomes critical, because you do have to sort of start convincing people. Apparently there are some private polls out there that suggest 70% of Kansas Cityans oppose this single terminal concept today. And so you've got to take some steps to try and change their mind if you're going to get those bonds passed.
Okay, but back to something that Dave Helling just said there, Lynn. No public money would be used as a result of this, though, in terms of regular taxpayer money here in Kansas City. This would come from ticket fees, concession sales, and things like that.
The airlines and other tenants. There's a Federal Aviation Trust Fund. And Mark Van Lowe, the aviation director, said other cities have gotten this money. They've gotten new airports from those dollars that Kansas City flyers have paid into. It's time for Kansas City to bring some of that money home. But the ability to finance the airport would be much cheaper, the interest rates would be much cheaper if we can do municipal bonds. And in Missouri, that requires a public vote. I think it's dawning on the city officials that if they hope to get a victory in that vote, which is probably several years away, they need to start laying the groundwork more favorably than they have done so far.
Now, Scott, we had Mark Van Lowe on probably about 18 months ago on our sister program, The Local Show, and he came on with a lot of arguments as to why this needed to take place, including the fact that it took just as many of the security agents checking all of the baggage going in as it did for all of the 3 airports in New York City almost combined. That was one of the big issues there at the Kansas City airport, how they were losing all of these flights coming into the city now that most people are not aware of. And so that was one of the reasons why they needed to educate the public. It was that the public didn't understand all of the factors going on at the airport.
And maybe I struggle against this panel mentally. I don't understand how Kansas City is losing flights. Airlines are a business. If people want to fly to Kansas City for business, for pleasure, to visit family, whatever, they're going to fly to Kansas City. I heard the argument this week that we're losing flights to Columbia, we're losing flights to Branson, we're losing flights to Wichita. Well, if I live in Seattle and I have family that lives in Kansas City, I'm not flying into Wichita and then driving 3 hours to Kansas City. I don't understand where these flights that were supposed to come into Kansas City are now going to Wichita or Branson, of all places.
We should be, I think what the aviation department will tell you is that the reason Kansas City International is so convenient, Nick, is because it's so inefficient. If you have 100 TSA workers, that is naturally going to be more convenient than if you have 10. And they have 100 people out there where they might only need 10 or 15 or whatever in a single terminal. So what you're getting is a classic confrontation between convenience and cost. And the people of Kansas City may have to decide if they want a little bit lower cost because they have fewer employees, 1 terminal instead of 3, in terms for surrendering some of that convenience, and that is a tough sell.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Will the public really have a role in any of this, Lynn?
The city says they will. They're going to have to factor in the public in the next level of study that they have to do, because they have to file an environmental analysis and it requires public input. And the aviation department says they've already gotten a lot of public feedback and they've learned from it and they think they've improved the plan. So the public will be involved and will have to be involved by the federal government.
Okay, Sam.
And let me just say that whether they have 100 TSA agents out there or 10, I don't care. The fact is that security line is shorter than most airports that you go to. And so if that means they have more TSA agents out there, fine by me.
One other piece to clean up very quickly, but if there is a vote, it will be Kansas City, Missouri only. It won't be the people in Kansas who use the airport. That could cause some confusion as well.
And I do think there's some cognitive dissonance between what grandma and the average leisure traveler and your family wants and what the business traveler wants. And other cities have managed to make their airports economic development engines. Charlotte has brought companies into the city because they have a good airport. The argument is that Kansas City is losing companies and is not drawing in new companies, and it's affecting the overall financial standing of the city to have a weaker airport.
Okay. Are you convinced now, Scott?
And I think part of the problem, 2 points if I can make them very quickly. Dave mentioned, the number of TSA agents that we have at our airport compared to others. What Kansas Cityans hear when they hear that is, oh great, I get to stand in the cattle call line the next time I go to KCI. And I think primarily that's why they don't want it. The other problem that the city has is, and maybe they have gotten some public input, but the perception is that this is being forced down our throat, that it's going to happen whether you like it or not. And nothing infuriates people, especially those who vote, than their government telling them, you are going to get this if you want it or not.
The corollary to that, Nick, quickly, is that people think if you're going to spend $1.2 billion, there are other places to spend it first, that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, let's work on other problems.
Okay, I do want to move on. Last word, Lynn.
Well, I think that this is all going to happen not tomorrow, not in the next year. This airport will, if it is built, will be built in the next 5 to 7 years. So there's going to be a lot learned in the coming days.
I'm going to be packing my suitcase, though, right after the show.